Well, look at that. I think I'm essentially live. That's exciting. Let me just go in here, and I sometimes snip this off the audio-only version, so people don't get to enjoy it. I'm just going to go in and retweet this, saying we are live. We are live! ! For RailNatter. There we go. Marvelous. Good. Just, people like to know. So good evening, everyone. It's episode 233. 234 episodes. 234. That's quite nice, isn't it? It's a numbers episode, funnily enough. We're talking about changing the UK's useless fiscal rules, about whether it's going to happen, why we might do it. I was tempted to make this abolish the Treasury red as an episode cover, but no, we're sticking to orange. It is a page turn. It's a page turn of a report that might be completely nebulous, and I may have absolutely no comprehension of it. But we'll find that out momentarily, because we're going to be talking a little bit about Rachel Reeves, who's the current Chancellor of the Exchequer, the head, the boss of the Treasury, and therefore the boss of the country. What's she doing? What's she up to? And what advice has she been taking on squeezing fiscal rules or altering fiscal rules and therefore increasing the amount that she can invest? And what might she do with that money if she does do that? Will she do it? Is she interested in doing it? And who's telling her to do it? And what interest does she have in doing it? These questions of this nature. We're going to tackle all of these tonight as best we can, as best as a railway podcast led by a rail engineer can. Well, there's a little smidgen, a wee tickle, a wee squash and a squeeze of news at the start. That we'll go through, because I'm saving all the other news. There's a lot of other news which we're going to do. I'm going to do as a quick pre-recorded news episode for next week, because I'm down in London doing a Politics in Rail event. Interesting. So enough of all that waffle. There is no Class 233, I'm afraid to say. So on that bombshell, someone said the best rail engineer in the country right now. No, Alan Wickens is still alive. Therefore, it's absolutely Alan Wickens. I just forgetting where I sit in any such list, and I don't, because I don't think that, obviously. But no, the best rail engineer in the country alive right now is Sir Alan Wickens, absolute legend. Anyway, on that bombshell, everyone, welcome to tonight's RailNatter. Oh, such excitement, and yet I'd clicked on something that isn't in the PowerPoint presentation, so you don't get to enjoy it. I guess I'll just cut this bit out in the podcast edit as well. Anyway, right, get on with this thing, everyone. Welcome to tonight's RailNatter. Wait, what the hell? The technology is letting me down today. I have the ability to fix this. Oh, why is that muted? How very strange. How incredibly odd. Yeah. Very weird. Not sure what was going on there. I think I fixed it, though. Now, this bit's all got to get cut. So much getting cut. It's always good. Yeah, starting off strong. Right. Okay, right. I'm going to go big face. Bring me up. Hello, everyone. Look, it's me and my mustache. I'm going to get this up here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to then prepare that by that. I'm going to make sure that the sound is working on this thing, which it should be. Yeah. I mean, the sound's working on me, so that should be fine. I'm going to make sure that this thing is open, because it's supposed to be. Good. And God, what a mess! It's okay. It's been a good day for sure, right? A good day over. Oh dear me, everyone! Welcome to tonight's RailNatter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away without any technical issues whatsoever being visible to anyone listening to this in audio-only format, we start with a little bit of news. So, the front in the battle for HS2 moved from Euston up to Manchester. Yeah, quite. Right, a petition for me to sing the intro music instead. Yeah, okay, thanks, Michael C. Right, we're just confusing the edit for all the people who are listening to this and going, oh, no, that was all smooth and all very good and excellent, marvellous. Right, so, yeah, Treasury at it again. So the first thing we've seen, there are a couple of stories that we have to think about here. The first is Treasury asking ministers to draw up billions of pounds of infrastructure cuts. Now, let's just remind everyone, this is just austerity again. So we have seen we've had a change in government and a change in nothing else. So that's a really important, depressing thing to process. Now, there's a theory out there. Riley of Trash Future has touted it. Others have also. I'm doing all right. We've nearly got him, folks. Anyway, more on that in a minute. Treasury at it again. So, right, ministers have been asked to draw billions of pounds in cuts over the next 18 months, despite claims about investing to grow the economy. As we know from the, we should just trust what they said they were going to do, and they said they weren't going to invest for the future, so we should just trust them on that front. For example, this particular story, Jen Williams picking it up in the FT, always worth paying attention to what Jen's digging out. Delayed Transpennine rail upgrade reviewed again ahead of budget. Electrification of Manchester Leeds route being studied for potential cost savings. So I'm just going to quote from the FT story. But as Whitehall gears up for Reeves' first budget, 3 people familiar with the process said that the project was again being looked at for potential cost savings. One said the impetus was to slow down spending in order to hit short-term budgetary targets within the Treasury, even if that meant the project could cost more in the long run. A second said the project east of Leeds had been asked to find 50 million in savings, while the same to the west was tasked with finding the same amount. So 100 million of savings from the project. A government source confirmed the project was being looked at ahead of the budget. This is staggering, not least as, we're talking about a multi-billion project. Who cares about 100 million quid? Who cares? The stream is getting very unhappy. Why is the stream unhappy? My internet's cut out twice today, which I've not been very happy about, to be honest. There's a critical beat for you to all enjoy. I don't know why. There we are. Good. That seems to be working. And YouTube, you all right? I'm hitting YouTube. There we are. Hello. You there? YouTube, you all right? Anyway, right, okay, we're back. God, this is going to be an edit-heavy audio episode, isn't it? Good grief. This is just nonsense. This is utter gibberish. This is basically virtue signaling. I can only describe this as virtue signaling. Now, the reason I've put this up is because then we look at the next story, which is Ed Conway at Sky picking this up, talking about how fiscal rules are impeding long-term investments. Yes, and what Rachel Reeves can do about it. Yes, and there are lots of discussions about that Rachel Reeves is expected to change the fiscal rules, but the thing is, Michael C. pointing out cuts to restoring your railways, which was a stupid sort of scheme. It's a stupid way to administer that money in the first place. But the cuts to restoring your railways, 85 million quid, also nothing. And the point is, it has a return. Treasury just do not understand the return. They have no comprehension of it. We'll get to that in a minute. But I think what's happened, there's a suggestion. There's 2 ways this goes. Firstly, Reeves has no interest in changing the fiscal rules, and we just see more austerity. That's like 50% likelihood of that happening. Secondly, Tim Ballum, thank you very much for the 20 quid and saying that the mug has turned up. Say it's sacked. Very nice. That's the thing that happens, by the way, in YouTube. People throw if you're worrying that I get distracted during these, I've added a new way for me to get distracted, and that is people throwing money at me mid-episode. Marvelous. So that's one thing, that none of this matters. Rachel Reeves just does more austerity. Number 2 thing is that Rachel Reeves makes changes to the fiscal rules and then uses that to say, no, I don't have to do any of these cuts to government departments, and that's the end of the story. And we don't actually see any additional investment. Third possible thing is we see the austerity and the change to fiscal rules happens, but that money is just used to prop up the private sector via house building or bungs to data center construction or whatever it has to be. Miserable, just miserable. Absolutely horrifying. So that's all the good stuff that Treasury are up to. Oh yeah, I just realised that my we don't need my. Oh no, we do need the mouse because we're doing a page turn. Let's leave the mouse on because we're doing a page turn. But what I am going to do is just do this, and then there we go, fine. Right, so Treasury at it again. Now,
well, even under the previous Tory government's plans, Euston was always going to be part of the solution. It would have been completely ridiculous to end the line between Birmingham and Old Oak Common. So we'll be setting out plans soon, both for what will happen with the line, but also how we're going to get a grip of HS2 and the costs, which have run massively out of control because the previous government did nothing to bear down on the costs.
Okay, thanks, Louise. Louise Haigh there, the Secretary of State for Transport. I nearly said shadows. No, she's retained the brief and is, voting record on certain things fairly recently to one side, still reasonably holding her principles, and stepping in to fix some messes, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The issue, hi, ITV News, yeah, so the issue on that one, I'm going to go big face, so I don't just look at the ITV News logo for 5 minutes. The issue, firstly, for Louise to be able to say that suggests that there's some rumblings of something happening in terms of, firstly, finalising what's going to happen at Euston. God, I hope they don't just continue to say nonsense about private sector is going to pay for Euston, because they won't, it can't, and it means Euston will be dog awful. But for Louise has been bullish on a couple of things recently, but for her to be being bullish about this is interesting. Obviously, the reason HS2 is costing so much more than original is because we've been meddling with it. And you can trace all the Euston cost issues to the fact that we stopped doing the two-stage construction. If we'd done the two-stage construction, we'd have had a cheaper Euston station. We'd have had the first stage of Euston station could have been open and running much earlier, which would have saved a lot of money. So all the problems with all of the cost escalations that are meaningful, we're talking the 50% of cost escalation, I'm willing to say are entirely from a mixture of government meddling, government intransigence. Those are the two features of why we're seeing costs escalating the way they are. But that's to one side. So that's hinting that there might be some headroom provided for infrastructure, but I'm not holding my breath. So that's one thing. The second thing I want to highlight is Euston and Louise stepping in. Hold that thought for a minute, because we're going to cover the next bit of news, because I'm sure you'll want a bit of Euston update, don't you? People have been asking me about this, so I am going to provide a bit of an update. So, Euston, is it unsafe? Well, London Travel Watch, for the first time we've had an official body saying yes, because on the 1st of October, London Travel Watch gave out a statement using the word dangerous, putting passengers in danger. Basically saying even on good days, the passenger experience at London Euston fails to match its importance as the capital's main rail gateway to four of the UK's largest cities. But it is when train services are disrupted that the station really struggles to cope with high levels of overcrowding, putting passengers in danger. So that's completely confirming what I said. An official body confirming what I said. Vindication on that. But it's not the end of the story. They're also, so they've met Network Rail, yet the problems are still arising. They refer to the ORR improvement notice and suggest that little has changed. They're very concerned that the situation is only going to worsen if new operators are successful in their applications to run additional services. And also, they highlight, incredibly, the ORR closed its improvement notice following actions taken and commitments made by Network Rail. In May, the Select Committee asked Network Rail for further detail on these actions. These details now need to be published and reviewed as a matter of urgency in light of the latest events at the station. So London Travel Watch doing their bit to hold people to account. Yeah, there we go. Interesting. Yes. So that's the 1st of October. Now, barely, well, what is it? What are we saying? Like a couple of days later? A day later? And this is a little tidbit from Network Rail's internal sort of media digest email. Moving on, and Euston remains a regular in news pages and elsewhere this week, with yesterday's Metro, among others, quoting London Travel Watch's allegation that the station was, inverted commas, dangerous. This assertion, right, okay, so they've inverted commas said dangerous. It's like, no, London Travel Watch are absolutely entitled to use the word dangerous without any quotes. If they're saying it's dangerous, it's dangerous. Again, Network Rail desperate to hide behind, well, legally, or not even legally, but just regulatory wise, we believe it's safe according to all the standards and requirements. It's like that doesn't mean it's safe. That's a very different concept, two very different and fundamentally different concepts. Now, this is an excruciating thing to put down in text, this next bit, so I'm going to read it very carefully. This assertion was based on a day when all routes from the station were closed for several hours owing to circumstances outside the railway's control. Yes, that's the point. The point is that the disruption is what makes it unsafe. Is that your defense? When someone dies as a result of a crush, or someone's seriously injured as a result of a crush, Network Rail's defense will be, yeah, but the station was busy because of disruption outside of our control. That ain't happening. That's not a defense. You're stuffed if you try and defend yourselves that way, which obviously you aren't going to. So why would you put this in a internal comms digest? It's just gaslighting. What's even more fun is, it's me again. They're talking about me again. Network Rail's press officers responded to every allegation. Again, they're using the word allegation, including late last night in advance of former rail engineer. Former rail engineer. No, I'm still a rail engineer. That's not changed. You might have got me sacked, but that doesn't mean I'm no longer an engineer. Gareth Dennis's appearance on Times Radio this morning, report to follow. Whatever. We continue to work with our dedicated and hardworking colleagues. Now, this implication is another one that makes me very angry. So I don't mean to make this the shout at the comms team show, but this implies that I'm suggesting that frontline staff are not dedicated or hardware. This suggests that I'm talking down to the staff at Euston, and this is another classic move, is suggesting that I'm calling out the staff at the station, and somehow my statements about Euston's problems should fall on their shoulders, or that I'm targeting them. It's a double whammy. Firstly, that's suggesting that I'm targeting the staff who are on the front line at Euston. Secondly, the implication, therefore, that this might be their fault if there is a problem. It's a really nasty little insinuation from the comms team there. And again, the word allegations. We continue to work with our dedicated and hardworking colleagues at Euston to rebut these allegations and explain our plans for improving the location ahead of what we hope will be a more comprehensive rebuilding in the future. Yeah, sure. Spoiler alert, this is what I've been angling for this whole time, folks. Why do you think I've been making such a big bloody fuss about it? So, that's Network Rail's internal comms. Basically, the day after that goes out, or possibly on the day that goes, there are certainly, like this timeline was very compressed. The day after that goes out, oh, look, that's right, the Secretary of State steps in to tell Network Rail that things are not good enough at Euston. In fact, I'll read the quote. This is from Ian Visits. Shout out to Ian Visits, by the way. You actually ended up having the best coverage of this particular story in terms of tying it all together. Let's see. The changes have been announced after the Transport Secretary, Louise Haigh, tasked the station's teams at Network Rail and relevant train operators, including Avanti West Coast and West Midlands trains, to look again at how the station works on a day-to-day basis and to make immediate improvements wherever possible. The Transport Secretary said this is a positive first step towards addressing overcrowding at the station, but adds that more must be done. Senior management at Network Rail will be meeting with the Secretary of State next week. That's already happened, I'd imagine, because next week is now, to answer questions on the station's plans and set out a route towards longer-term improvements to the passenger experience. Transport Secretary Louise Haigh said, "For too long, Euston Station simply hasn't been good enough for passengers. That's why I've tasked Network Rail with coming up with a clear plan to immediately improve conditions for passengers. This includes a shutdown of the advertising boards from today to review their use." That's right, they have shut down the stupid advertising boards. "We know Euston needs a permanent solution and are working hard to agree this, but these immediate steps will help alleviate some of the issues the station has got." I guess I've covered it up. Has been facing. Yeah, okay, there we go. Fine. So, allegedly, in fact, let me just quickly find that Ian visits Euston, because I think there's angry. No, originally this piece said that the Secretary of State was angry, and it pointed out the fact that the Secretary of State had made an angry intervention, which I couldn't entirely believe. So, this 5-point plan, then. Why did this? Why does Network Rail memo remind me of the days of rail track? Well, yeah, quite. Master Champ, so I'm currently applying for a job with Network Rail. I won't be mentioning this in my interview, but what about any probationary period I may have? Should I or anyone else who shares our opinion have? Well, quite. Yeah, exactly. Just, further shout out to the frontline staff at Euston. They're doing all they can, given the fact that there aren't enough of them. Certainly not enough Avanti staff. And the conditions are extremely difficult because of decisions made by the industry's leadership, including someone who we're going to talk about in a minute. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so Louise getting stuck in. The optics, by the way, of the youngest member of cabinet, a woman, and a woman who's, willing to have dyed hair and actually be herself a bit, and a northerner, the optics of someone ticking all of those boxes, stepping in past a bunch of old, fusty, intransigent dinosaurs who've been just working very hard to make sure nothing changes. The optics of that are not lost on me. And you know what? Fair play to Louise on that one. Kudos for it, that she's had to step in across all these. Worth saying, no mention of the rail minister. Secretary of State has stepped in without a single mention of him for a variety of hopefully fairly obvious reasons. Now, this 5-point plan, let's just here it is. Here it is on the Network Rail website. Let's just ping up the independent article that I contributed to back in April that kicked all the fun off. So, number 1, reviewing passenger information provision and circulation, including a shutdown review of the use of overhead advertising boards. So, what did I say here? Let's see. To make things better for those who do end up waiting for delayed trains, Gareth says, he recommends getting rid of all the advertising, pulling back retail spaces even more seating, all those things that really prioritise the passenger who's stuck. A review on how passengers are invited to and board services, especially during disruption, is point 2. Okay. 3, creating more concourse space and alleviating pinch points, which will include more and upgraded toilet provision. Okay, so again, things I've referred to. 4, unifying station operations during disruption to ensure a holistic approach is taken for the benefit of all passengers. So that's kind of a fairly generic management statement, which I don't cover, but all the other points I cover, because of course 5, driving up reliability of both infrastructure and train services to reduce disruptive events being experienced at the station, which is where I say in the short term the first point of action should be, this is then me being quoted by myself and therefore reading my own words, ensuring the reliability on that line goes way back up into the high 90% range, Dennis suggests. So that's me. So you don't have the situation where thousands of people are stuck. There we are. Now, interesting. So their 5-point plan is just doing everything that I said in the original article that Hendy got so upset about. He had me sacked by threatening and falsely blackmailing my former employer. Interesting. Talking about this chap, the rail minister is nowhere to be seen. The only public appearance he has made is, to my knowledge, is that he gave a pre-recorded video statement in a trance at the British Embassy Railway dinner, where he looked absolutely haggard, and that was the end of that. He's very much been hidden. He's grounded. He has not been out in public at all, which is the thing he likes to do, is go out and feel important, sat next to people at fancy dinners. He hasn't been able to do that. I would postulate he's having a miserable time of it because he's not been allowed to be at anything at all. Everything's happening around him. He wasn't even at the House of Lords for a reading of the Railways Bill earlier this week. So he's really not even doing his own job at this point. I can't remember whether I actually talked about the fact that I can't remember whether it happened since the Euston thing, where I talked about the fact that he literally cannot do his job where he is, because any public contract that's put out by the DFT, so that includes anything that Network Rail puts out, can be challenged at judicial review by the losing bidders because of the letter he sent. So he cannot do his job. He has to be removed from post. So, folks, he's gone. He's already gone. It's just a case of whether they get rid of him quietly as quietly as they can over Christmas, or whether he disappears earlier. What a shame for the guy whose legacy over the railways is mixed at best. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about money. The last thing I want to do is go back to one of the comments on the Ian Visits place, which is TM says, 6:49 p.m. on the 6th of October 2024, I don't think Gareth Dennis has any impact on the high-level decision-making of Euston Station, despite how he acts. I'm going to beg to differ on that one. And I suppose you're right, then, vindicating your comment, is that I do act like I've made some change happen, because I know I have, by the various high-level people who've been trying to contact me and running around on fire. Anyway, oh dear, what a shame. Pyrrhic victory, says Jack Elliott. Yeah, quite. Anyway, you'd almost feel bad for him, but he's done it to himself. I don't feel bad for him. He's a millionaire. He'll be right. Although I hope to do something about that too soon. Anyway, right. So, all good fun. Gareth, yes, I have done an episode on... Oh, we'll talk more about Euston Station in the future. There's so much to talk about, and we won't make it about the overall thing. We'll talk about Euston Station, actually, have a railway engineering chat about Euston Station, the problems with its design and why it ended up being designed the way it was, and what about it was good, and why it's completely unfit for purpose as a station now, and what elements of it we should retain, which I think the passenger concourse we should retain, because it is actually quite architecturally important, but a lot of the station should be obliterated into dust, not least all the parcel area, which I know it would be nice to make use of that infrastructure perhaps, but I suspect not. Anyway, there's a book that the TM person can have a read. They'll enjoy that. Anyway, Euston, unsafe, who knows. Let's go back to talking about the Treasury, because if I make my miniaturized face appear, actually my face light has run off. Let's fix that. Let's make me all bright in the corner again. There we go. Marvellous. Right. That episode 144, Should We Abolish the Treasury with Steve Westlake, was a good episode. And we explained why, you explained my hashtag of abolish the Treasury and why it's a good idea and why we should do that. Now, that episode's probably a good one to go back and revisit if you haven't before, to understand all the problems with Treasury and why it's such a such a harness, such a shackle on the ankle of perhaps an interesting choice of words there, given its history as a department. But anyway, should we abolish the Treasury? Yes. So more recently, and I referred to this in the news, I think, a couple of episodes ago, the Office of Budget Responsibility, another pointless organisation that shouldn't exist, or at least should be incorporated into whatever's left of Treasury. They published a little paper, discussion paper number 5, Public Investment and Potential Output. This is their own graphic. We've just published our discussion paper on public investment and potential output. Hooray! Well, great. Office for Budget Responsibility with your GNER-ass. Is that Futura? Looks very Futura, doesn't it? Your GNER-ass looking front cover. Because we're going to look through this damn thing. We're going to have a read of it. Is it going to be completely opaque? I have no idea. I've not looked at the actual... Well, I have. I've flicked through the chart pages but I've interpreted it off other economists and policy specialists who've interpreted. I have not page turned this, so we're going to page turn it together and see what we can learn together. Let's have a look. So the thing we're going to look at, it's here. Here it is. It's PDF, published in August 2024. That was last month. No, it wasn't. August, September. It was a couple of months ago, actually. So public investment potential output is the abstract. Fine. It's just a paper. It's a nice paper. It's got six sections. Background, right? Okay, so this often we skip the background. We're not going to do that this time because it might give us some useful definitions. Oh man, there's already 3-letter acronyms popping up left, right, and centre. The evolution of potential output, or the supply side, is the most important determinant of long-term economic prospects. Is a key driver of our economic and fiscal forecasts and has been a major focus of economic policy under successive governments. Okay, I don't lost at this point. I mean, I kind of know what they're saying, but pertinent. No. In recent years, as both national statistical data and our own models have developed, we have sought to be more explicit about how we construct our potential output forecasts and described how we decompose the forces behind changes in productive capacity into 3 main drivers: the labour supply, capital stock, and total factor productivity. Okay. I'm sure these will all be made clear later, or possibly. Will it be an exceedingly rare OBR win? ? Asked Jack Elliott. We'll see. It might be, it might not be, but the data that they present will be useful for us. So, okay, fine. It's economic and fiscal outlooks. So it's always funny because their economic and fiscal outlooks from the OBR was like, no, Britain's going to do great. And there's just a series of these upward spikes and we're just flatlining because, funnily enough, we haven't invested in infrastructure, particularly in transport. So that all looks... Forecast for the evolution. So they're taking account of the impacts of change to childcare provision, pensions, national insurance, personal tax, blah, 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 blah. Forecast the evolution of private capital stock have reflected the impact of temporary super deduction, expensing, blah, 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 whatever. While public sector investment policy has seen fewer significant changes over this period, it too can have a significant impact on the supply potential of the economy. As with private investment, public investment affects economy-wide potential output principally via its impact on the stocks of assets that support economic activity. I mean, this is a very wonky way of describing, like you get a thing that works. So they're describing assets, So they're saying it's good that we have a public asset. It's like, oh, this is such annoying treasury brain. Like, no, it's not an asset. It's a thing. It's a service that makes the country work better. So investment itself can take the form of either direct investment in publicly owned assets, good, or indirect investment in privately owned assets, not good. So, right, okay. Okay, so the paper explores in greater depth how changes in public investment can affect potential output and seeks feedback on our proposed approach to reflecting this more explicitly in our forecasts. Okay, so this is just about forecasting rather than about justifying fiscal rules, but this okay, fine. So Section 2 describes the composition and evolution of UK public investment in the public capital stock in a historical and international context. Okay, interesting. Section 3 considers how public investment affects the economy. Okay, this is going to be like economic mumbo-jumbo bullshit rather than saying if you have more railways and people can move around more, the economy will work better. I suspect so. Section 4 presents and discusses illustrative scenarios for the impact of a change in public investment on potential output. Section 5 discusses some issues for further consideration. Section 6 sets out a set of questions for feedback on our proposed approach. Okay, fine. To illustrate the dynamics of our modelling approach, we explore a stylised unit shock to public investment of plus 1% of GDP. A staggering additional 1% of GDP, which is, by the way, far short of what we need in terms of total investment, but would account for an enormous amount of money. Anyway, yeah. Pythagoras is saying EU single market allowance would yield 40 billion in tax revenues a year, no need for austerity now. Well, yeah, that ain't happening politically. Do they not put it in English that most people use deliberately? Yeah, Rob, this has to be impenetrable to humans, so we're going to do our best to pick our way through it. I've read enough of these things that generally you can pick out the salient information, so let's just jump our way through. Composition and evolution of public investment capital stock. So, fine. There's going to be so much gibberish in here that we're just going to roar through, to be honest. I have no intention of dwelling on it. Because a lot of it's total meaningless mumbo-jumbo, other than to economists who get very excited about it, but a lot of it doesn't actually hold any particular truth. It's just like saying words off a PowerPoint presentation. So, investment is a broad term that captures spending that creates an asset. Yes, that is true. For the purposes of this paper, investment spending can be allocated to one of two buckets. So we've already talked about investment that adds directly to the non-financial capital stock of the entity doing the investment, which is a fancy way of saying you get stuff, you get infrastructure, you get services that work better, you get hospitals, you get schools. Fixed capital formation also includes, so it's not just physical stuff, it also includes intangible assets. For instance, investment in software, which adds to the public stock of software assets. Sure. The ONS judges whether or not to capitalise spending according to international statistical guidance. Okay. So deciding whether something is revenue spending or capital spending, basically. And then the other investment, which is like that can include that which adds to the stock of financial assets held by the government. For instance, when the government issues student loans, this investment adds to the stock of student loan assets held by the public sector, but not the public fixed capital stock, which is made up of non-financial assets only. These other investments may also, whatever. Okay, fine. Who cares? It's all in numeric form rather than like, it's all like, oh, but money, because this is just how they see things. And okay, it's a way to capture the data. But anyway, right, we're just gonna roll forward through here. Public investment and capital stocks in our fiscal forecast can be undertaken by central government, local government, or public corporations. Yes. Okay. Fine. These are the institutional units that undertake public investments. Okay. Fine. What else? So, percent of GDP. So capital grants to and from private sector is in yellow. The actual public investment is there in purple, and the forecast there showing that under the future government, this government, it's planned to go down. They're going to down, reducing public investment, down. Fantastic, isn't that terrific? And it's been bouncing around about between 3 and 4% of GDP. Dropped to the floor in 19 and then jumped in 2020. I don't know why that might have been. Yeah, it is intended for a specialist audience to some degree. Harry Harrison, you're absolutely right. Yeah. The trouble is, this is the stuff that more than anything else, this sort of stuff influences all of our lives, so it should be penetrable rather than impenetrable, which is why we're doing this episode, really. So, okay, fine. That's just saying we're doing a bad job of doing any investment, whatever. All right, so that's the knowledge. There's also stuff about depreciation, which again is it's not. It's moot. From a peak of around 8% of GDP in the mid to late 1960s, that's what we should be spending now, by the way, folks. Public sector net investment declined to a sustained post-war low of around 0.5% at the turn of this century. Yeah, ouch. This decline in public investment was driven by three main factors: a decline in social housing investment starting in the 1970s, privatisation of major public utilities starting in the 1980s, and a reduction in investment in public services in the 1990s. The first two of these can be seen in the reduction in contributions to PSNI from local governments and public corporations in Chart 2.2. So this chart 2.1. PSNI rebounded over the 2000s to reach a three-decade high of 3% of GDP in 2008-9, but the post-financial crisis period saw a further half-decade period of retrenchment. Between 1998 and 2008, a focus of government policy was to raise public investment, with much of the increase in public service assets such as school and hospitals. The 2008 financial crisis that resulted in a huge rise in public sector debt saw a refocusing of fiscal policy into deficit reduction and debt stabilisation, to which cuts in investment made significant contributions. Questionable whether that's even remotely true. So here's an interesting and useful graphic. Post-war to today, levels of investment. So firstly, you can see what the role of local government was in making investments. This is a good thing. So this is very useful for us to sort of, you know what, maybe I should I try and zoom in a bit on this one. I can't. That's fine. I'll just, hopefully you can zoom in yourselves on YouTube. You have that technology, by the way. You can scroll in with your mouse if you're on YouTube on your phone, on your computer, and you can zoom in with your fingers if you're watching this on your phone. Don't zoom in on my face. So these are the total numbers, and then there's the public corporations is counted in the other direction. The key thing is the yellow is local, purple is central. You can see that local government is spending a huge amount, a lot of that on public housing. The lion's share of that on public housing, in fact, and should have been spending that much on other stuff too, and didn't. And all the money then went to central government, and we are hyper centralized, and there's just no investment comes from anyone other than central government now, and that's very bad, folks. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. Very bad. And to be honest, I don't want the purple line to go up. I want the yellow lines to return in the future. That's kind of a really key, important thing for me to kind of communicate through. So, we're going to get to see. So let's jump to the next graph, which is where you get to see net stock. So the amount of general a view of how much just crap there is that we have in this country in terms of stuff, whether it's railways, hospitals, schools, physical stuff, and also non-physical stuff. And so like machinery, equipment, and weapon systems is in green there, horrifying. Yellow is in dwellings, decreased, and then purple is other buildings and structures, so like railways. So that's gone from 20% of GDP up to like nearly 30% of GDP is on railways and other physical stuff. In total, we're at around 40%. Gone from 30% to 40% of GDP is our stock of assets, if you're going to think of it that way. It's interesting. There's no like attempt so far to quantify the benefit of these things. Master Challenge, what is even the point of local governments if they don't have the money to fulfill any of the promises or make any of the changes they want to see? It's so they take the blame for stuff that central governments made decisions on. So, government investment in the UK and other major advanced economies. Here we go. So let's have a look at these two graphs. Chart 2.4, G7 comparisons of gross fixed capital formation. So central government and economy-wide. So here's the range. The D7 average is the yellow line, which is a bit hard to see, and the purple line here is the United Kingdom. So if we look at general government, the public investment is bottom through the 90s, then a little bit increases to not quite the G7 average, so very much below average, but not at the bottom, and then decreases down to be mostly towards the bottom again. But if we look economy-wide, you'll see that the UK is almost entirely at the bottom of the G7 when it comes to investment. Fantastic, excellent stuff. Really great work there from us. And is anyone surprised? So, UK public and private sector investment in net capital stocks. Whatever, don't care. Right. So, number 3, how public investment affects demand and supply. So this is the bit where we attempt to see if they attempt to kind of capture this stuff in sensible ways. So let's see, potential output or supplies, level of activity. This is where it's like I should be. I'm not a good enough Marxist at this point, am I? Anyway, an increase in public investment can temporarily boost excess demand in the economy. For example, a new infrastructure project may require additional workers during the period of its design and construction, potentially increasing employment, household incomes, and consumption. That's true. Yep, this effect is commonly captured via fiscal multipliers, positive demand multipliers, the pound in your pocket type situation. Positive demand multipliers, no, not pound in your pocket. The pound that goes around and gets spent a few times, that's the one, that might imply that these workers would not in aggregate otherwise have been employed on private infrastructure projects. In the medium term, the demand boost would be expected to dissipate to match only any long-run increase in supply as the exchange rate, wages and prices and monetary policy adjust to bring the output gap to zero inflation to target. Okay, fine. So that's basically saying invest in a project like HS2 and people have jobs more than might otherwise have, and therefore that's good for the economy. That makes sense. A sustained increase in public investment can permanently increase aggregate supply, and in doing so have a sustained impact on incomes and expenditure. For example, a new infrastructure project may create a durable asset, such as a new transport link, which produces a flow of capital services. This asset can, in turn, support other forms of economic activity, such as greater domestic and international trade and investment. These supply-side benefits might be expected to materialize more slowly than any short-lived demand impact upon domestic production. It takes time for the asset to be created, the services it provides to begin to flow, and for the private sector to respond. Yeah, so that is kind of a wonky way of saying railways create... They're just good in and of themselves. Fine, good, fine. I mean, it's not talking about anything about well-being or the carbon value of doing these things, but, whatever. Okay, fine. The narrow remit and narrow point of view, fine. How public investment can affect potential output, fine. So factors are labour supply, which is the number of people who can find work, fine. Capital stocks, fine. Okay, skip this. Here we go. Numbers, formulae, marvellous. So we're going to dive our way through this stuff because here's output elasticity of public capital. Ooh, output elasticity, fantastic. Let's continue to ignore all that. Taking account of time lags, this will become pertinent in a minute. Time to complete, yeah. Time to construct a particular asset, fine. Yes, so it's sort of saying, oh, but projects are scary and sometimes they're delayed, and oh, that's fine. That's because of our approach to doing them. Recent UK public investment projects have revealed a mixture of good and bad project outcomes, signalling the importance of policy design and implementation effectiveness in determining the... Bent Fleabjerg spotted. In determining the performance of investment projects. Okay. Bent... very mixed views on Bent's outputs, because he goes, don't do mega projects, and then he says, do Hyperloop. So a man to not be paid too much attention to be honest. Fine. Time lags, estimates, fine. So this is what's going to lead to the graphs that we're going to talk about in a minute. Economic effects of a change in public investment. So here we go. We're going to produce two simulations using this approach. Consider one scenario where the increase is permanent and one where the increase is temporary. Okay, so it's going to be like, look, what's going to happen to the economy if we do all this stuff and marvelous. Okay, so here's all the inputs. So this is the key thing. Bearing in mind that the fiscal rules mean that stuff isn't looked at beyond like a 5-year period, right? So, UK fiscal rules not allowed to look at benefits beyond a 5-year time period. That's the fiscal rule. So, impasse on supply and demand. So here's the two examples. So the permanent change here. The yellow here is the change in GDP and of the excess demand, so like the short-term response. And then the purple is the change in GDP long-term. So like the railway has made an impact. So yellow is we're building the railway and that's good for the economy. Purple is we've built the railway and that's good for the economy. So here you can see that the initial benefit, so the thing that Treasury only thinks about, which is like the excess demand of we've spent the money on the project, diminishes over the lifetime of the project. So their modelling here is saying 4 or 5 years, whatever. So then you hit the fiscal rule point, and only then do you get the climb up of the improvement of the permanent change in supply side improved economy. If you make it as a temporary change of this is, remember, saying percent of GDP impact, do it just temporarily, and the benefits are Yeah, so not that they're not. I don't know why YouTube has been grumpy, but I think I'm back. If TF heard the name Bent Fleevbjerg, they'd be in hysterics. Yeah, name alert. That's right. Anyone who's pro Hyperloop is someone who shouldn't be listened to. Am I back, folks? Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. The internet cut out for me in the estate earlier today, and it got me worried. I wonder if there's some weird stuff going on. They're trying to repair it. I wish they wouldn't. Anyway, so rates of return. So calculating the rates of return on public investment. So cash flow impact is obviously down to invest, and then you get your total economic benefit over time. So you get economic returns and fiscal returns. Fine. So are we going to see a nice net present value graph soon? I hope so. There's also like discount rates and Green Book and all sorts of gibberish and economic implied benefit cost ratios are like 2 to 1. Blah, 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 blah. So page 32, the conclusion of this bit is the results and key parameters shown in this chapter are summarized in table 4.2. Okay, so that's not hugely helpful, to be honest. The graphs are the important bit. But the results and key parameters shown in the chapter are summarized in the table. Our empirically based modeling framework generates material long-run effects on GDP from additional public investment. If it is sustained, so you have to keep doing it, rolling program, etc., the implied internal rates, the impacts of a reduction in public investment would be correspondingly negative. So I love that they just slid that one in there. The implied internal rates of return are positive, although the return to the exchequer is likely to be much smaller than the return to the economy. So there's the point of like, no, the economy benefits, but the direct exchequer benefits are less. Okay, fine. We would not blindly apply the results in Table 4.2 to assess the economic impacts of all possible future changes in public investment. In particular, we would need to consider the type and mode of investment, source of financing, general equilibrium effects, and policy-specific factors, which we discuss in the next section. Okay, further considerations. So it's saying what things are good to invest in, what things aren't good to invest in. So, right, so fine. Roads, railways, airports, utilities, they're core capital. My final. Right, okay. Let's skip forward and see some numbers. Sorry. So chart 5.1. What are we learning? Government gross fixed capital formation by function over time. So blue is environment and recreation, small. Green is public services, decent. Yellow is defence, reduce that. Purple is economic affairs. It includes spending on general economic affairs, labour and commercial affairs, transport and other categories. Okay, so like the transport investment is included in the purple. Fine. Okay. It's interesting seeing that. That's the public investment over that time period since '95. We see the increase through the later, the increase through the new labour years, climbing to the peak just before or just in the aftermath of the financial crisis, and then it dropped again as we decided, no, we're going to reduce it because that'll help definitely, for sure, absolutely, yeah. Love from a W2OP hog. Hello, there's a couple of me episodes coming out soon. I'd be very glad to hear. So, there we are. So, indirect, they're not going to undertake a full bottom-up analysis of all types of public sector investment. So, There's also looking at some indirect investment, fine, equilibrium effects, scrutinising the fiscal impact of investment plans, okay. Clear remarks, okay, right, so I've not learned anything from this section other than what we're going to read in this concluding remarks section. This paper is set out to quantify the magnitude of the effects of public investment on potential output and discuss the speed at which these effects might be expected to occur. This section has set out several of the further considerations that would be associated with an actual set of changes in public investment plans. We hope that this discussion paper transparently explains the approaches we're currently taking. We will continue developing our modelling and analysis as the evidence base improves further, and in response to any further feedback that we receive, as we discuss in the next section. Okay. So really, we'll go back to the graph in a minute. The graph showing that the fiscal rules have almost been set up specifically to make sure that public investment doesn't happen is kind of the key one, really. So discussion questions, fine. And that's that. That's kind of that. So if I cover your eyes, this is the key graph here. This one right here. So good grief. What have we said? What haven't we said? How much is there that we need to, like? What's the key thing we need to focus on here? Let's just screenshot that thing here. Let's screenshot that. And let's dingity ding. Sorry, you're all getting my beeps as my computer does stuff. So key question. This is the important graph, by the way. You might I've now put on screen that we're going to press on with. So this is the important graph. Here it is. Look. So the point here is that the fiscal rules. In fact, you know what? Let's just UK fiscal rules. Enter. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely too opaque. Yeah, there we go. So let's put this here. It's gone straight to the Institute for Government. So let's just, the fiscal rules, current fiscal rules are, number one, debt should be on course to fall as a share of national income in 5 years' time. That's been, by the way, that's been the rule, that's been like the fiscal rule every year for like 15 years or whatever. 2008, longer than that even. Funari, $20. Thank you so much. Very kind. Thank you. That's very, very kind indeed. That's quite fun that sort of stuff is happening. Yeah, terrific. Anyway, this is a ridiculous thing. And actually, Mr. Conway on Sky News points this out nicely, which is that it's ridiculous. It doesn't work. 5 years' time. That's the 5-year number, by the way. It's the primary fiscal rule. Public sector borrowing should not exceed 3% of GDP in 5 years' time. Again, 5 years. 3% of GDP, again, bad. And then also the nonsense about welfare spending. So these are the three ones. It's funny that welfare spending has a specific cap. It's like, why should it have a specific cap? Anyway, doesn't matter. Key thing, after 5 years, you'll see that all the benefits, you haven't had the climate benefits. The climate benefits hasn't happened yet. So it makes no sense to measure over that period. It just doesn't. This is baffling. This is a baffling thing to have included. So the question I kind of have is, will there be change? Like, the discussion about fiscal rules are kind of escalating. Are we going to see any actual material changes given these discussions about fiscal rules? As I said earlier, I'm 50-50 on whether we do. Pick the bad route, and that seems to be the one that Labour have been following on everything. So, will there be change? Okay, let's hypothetically say there is. The next question then is, will we put this change to good uses or bad uses? That's the next question. That really is the key question, isn't it? Is that, are we? So, if we did make this change, are we just going to use it to avoid doing doing austerity and that's it? Or are we going to use it to throw money at the private sector on things like carbon capture? So that's a huge lump of money that, by the way, a bunch of fossil fuel lobbyists have given millions of pounds to the current Labour Party, a bunch of money just to the fossil fuel industry to do something that doesn't work. Carbon capture storage, that's money for that sort of nonsense, for data centres, for private house builders, for them to build 20,000 houses a year instead of the 100,000 that we basically need, and they should be built by the public sector. Or does she use it to actually put money into transport, put money into the things that we need? Bear in mind that there's some very interesting points made that the most effective investment for the country right now would be transport investment in terms of just an economic perspective, not even thinking about the societal benefits that obviously I talk about in this thing of why we want to do that. Will they do that? I suspect not. Are they going to use the money to take the aero concrete out of hospitals? I suspect not. Would I like them to? Yes, I would. But I don't know. So what? Yeah, what? Yeah, the 22 billion on carbon capture made Jack Elliott very angry. It made me very angry as well, Jack. Yeah, it made me extremely angry. I don't really, I don't really have a good. How do we kind of tackle that kind of mass intransigence on? Yes, I am slide setting up mass intransigence on the future. On our future, just the obvious lobby, the obvious corruption and lobbying of this government. Quadrature, what is that? 4 million quid fossil fuel, just a climate denying, climate skeptic fossil fuel lobbying group. Yuck! All the enormous number of lobbied MPs, like lobbyist and lobby MPs, who are including from the water industry, and all the stupid lines in the sand, like we will not nationalize water. Like, no, that's exactly what we need to do to fix water, is just nationalize it. It's just Like, let it go. Let them all go bust because they're all going bust energy. Let them all go into asset administration, and then just take them for free and move on from that point. It's just extremely excruciating. Hannah Goodliff is going, please someone tell me that they mean carbon capture as in planting trees, right? No, they mean ask the state of Alberta in Canada how well their carbon capture has been going. Carbon capture only the applications of carbon. I'm not saying carbon capture has no applications. Absolutely, Alex. The applications for things like concrete batching plants or steel making applications exist, absolutely. But no, bearing in mind who is lobbying for this stuff, it's not going to be going to the good stuff, folks. Yes, the DNOs also need to be. Oh, it's the can it go bust rule. Just apply the can it go bust rule. Yeah. So chop me a question, but I'll answer at the end. Let us remove my face from the equation, shall we? So, this episode will be available in audio-only format, thanks to all those listening. Actually, you know what? Let's just quickly Podbean, log in to Podbean. Yes, log in. Yes, continue. Gosh, why is there not a quick and easy login? Just check which episode I actually put up last. 230. Oh, 232 is not up yet. What? For God's sake. Unbelievable. Just late as ever. You know what's funny is I'm actually literally going to do this now. What do you mean I'm doing stuff mid-episode that I need to... yeah, that's right. Content live. Download the last episode to... Yeah, there we go. I'm downloading the crash episode so I can convert it into audio form. Marvellous. Apply can it go bust rule to Treasury. What will be the outcome? That's an interesting one. I think it's all a state entity, so it doesn't necessarily really apply, Raphael, in this instance. Right, so yeah, audio-only platforms. You'll get last week's episode and this week's episode. So the challenge is that the episode goes into YouTube and does not finish. Did I say this last time? It doesn't finish for download in the evening, so I can't do the work on the Wednesday night, and then I don't have many evenings other than that because, young father. So the usual plugs: patreon.com/GarethDennis to continue supporting me, to the 205 I think paid supporters of Rail Matter and me. Thank you so much. It's extremely helpful at the moment, let me promise you. GarethDennis.co.uk/merch for the merchandise, which is good fun. More potentially on the way on that front. So do pay close attention to that. PayPal.me/GarethDennis for loose change and abuse. Thank you to those of you who've bunged me a bit recently. It's extremely kind. It's like something like pays for a shopping for a week, given I haven't got the old salary. GarethDennis.co.uk/I am hunting, by the way, but it's extreme. Independent of anything about me as a person, it's just a very difficult time to get a new job at the moment in the industry because of things like HS2 cancellation and so on. GarethDennis.co.uk/Discord for the Discord chat, for the chat to continue ad infinitum. It does do that, and it's great that we do. The book. We've sold so many. We nearly sold 500 of these things already, and it's not even on shelves yet. It's not even supposed to be in people's hands, although the warehouse has sent a few out. If you've got one already, by the way, don't tell anyone yet, apart from on the Discord server where you can. But as soon as it does go live on the 12th of November, which is in just over a month, I'm hoping for lots of pictures like this of people to send the book out on adventures with railways or other transport modes behind, or other pertinent landmarks. All welcome. Anyway, do go and buy the book. The more pre-orders that go out, then Waterstones stock more and distribute more to the people. Likewise, Penguin Random House send more around the US, etc., etc. So the more that go out in pre-orders, then the more overall people will buy, and the higher chance that people will pay attention to some of the stuff in it. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Anyway, what else? Oh yeah, that's right. In 15 minutes, we're going to return to Amphitrust because we're going to do some heavy industry consolidation because why not? Also some railway stuff, of course. So that's we're back in Transport Fever 2, back in Amphitrust. That's in 15 minutes. Indeed. So, what's next week, though? Next week, it's going to be some more news. I'll go through and build this episode, and it's going to be a quick pre-record because I'm in London that night doing a Politics and Rail event for young rail professionals. So if you're a young rail professional, you can book into that event. I'd recommend doing so because there are very limited seats. It should be fun. Guess who was supposed to be the headline panelist of that event. I'm hosting it. I'm the quiz master, and that's right. Hendy was supposed to be fronting that one. I mean, he isn't. He's not even said he's not doing it, but he's not doing it. Anyway, right, that's episode 234. That's next week. That'll be news. Chuck anything else that you want to do, Michael. See if you've got any places you visited and you want to shove a segment in. Always keen. In any case, that's an episode. It's a bit of a bouncy one. We did some stuff. We page turned a boring report, but hopefully there's some stuff in there that's meaningful. Most of it was a discussion about other stuff, wasn't it? But anyway, we got there. No, it's Chatham House Rule, that event, by the way. So I can't report anything that goes on in it because it allows everyone to speak freely. But they're always interesting, and do not worry, I ask searching questions. I'll tell you what I can do. I can tell you the questions I'll be asking. Let's go to my sent emails. Let's see. Nope, wrong one. Let's further. Oh my goodness me. Good grief. Well, I do send a lot of emails, don't I? How embarrassing. Golly, I mean, I really do send YRP. That's probably going to do it. There we are, that's good. These are 5 themes that I'm going through. You like these: centralization versus devolution, GBR progress and powers, the rise and fall of minimum viable product, oh yeah, the Maya report, and empowering diverse industry voices. This last one's fun. It's becoming increasingly clear that the industry wants to hear from young, bright and diverse voices, right up to the point where those voices can actually make a difference to the way the industry operates, at which point those diverse voices disappear. How can we change this culture? How can we break the institutional inertia such that people within the industry who actually want change are allowed to talk about it, let alone make it happen? I don't know what that might be in reference to. I'm not suggesting I'm a diverse voice, by the way. I mean, compared to the people in the leadership, diverse in terms of background, but that's the long and short of it, isn't it? Let's be honest. So, diverse voices brackets Scottish accents in the rail industry. Thanks, Max Johansson. That is partly true. Right. So. That's enough of that, frankly. Everyone, it's been lovely to have you. Oh, what questions? That's what people are saying. Am I still out of work? I mean, to an extent, and I don't have a salaried day job. Yes, I have other bits and pieces of juggling, but it's, yeah. Master Trams is saying job hunting is hard. Been trying for 4 months to get even an interview, never mind an offer. Now, Tune came in 5 minutes earlier today. Master Trams, congratulations. That's fantastic news. Max Johansson, birth is in November. I fully intend to get the book then. It's tenner, it's cheap. It's been popping up on lists. There was a philosophy football put it on a list of top books to be reading about this government, which is cool. Would you accept photos of the book following me around my archive runs? Ella, absolutely, yes. Raphael will be in Egypt when it comes out, so yeah, I mean, you could get someone to take pictures, or you could get it posted to you in Egypt, of course. Currency episode, Gareth asked for the currency episode. Gareth, we do need to actually sort that out, don't we? Michael, see, don't rush if you haven't planned to prep something, just in case, you know. Page-turn events type episode. It's sort of a, you know, we did a WTYP on Hendy. Been to the last couple of politics and rail events and always enjoyed it. Look forward to next week. Thanks, Nathan L. Yeah, cool. Nice to have you along here as well. Right. When will this episode be uploaded to Spotify? Quicker than last week, hopefully. But I'm always it's always within the week, but it's been a bit later recently because I'm just overwhelmed a bit with chasing people to convince them that they ought to employ me. And also my heart's not in it because none of them are going to be as good as the job that I lost. So that's depressing, particularly from an ADHD perspective. That doesn't help with incentives. Sorry, I'm reading questions, I'm looking at a weird angle. Right. Michael, I'm sorry to hear you've been ill. Hopefully you get better, but no rush at all. Right, I'm waving. Everyone, been an absolute pleasure. It's 4 minutes late episode. In 10 minutes, you're going to join some of you in Amphitros. In the meantime, cheerio! Cheerio!